Lil Jeff's death is still being talked about, and now the person who took his life has sent a message to Jeff's people. He does not seem scared at all. He said people have been trying to take him out his whole life, but no one has succeeded. He made it clear that if they want to come for him, they will have to prove themselves. But things took a darker turn when he went online and revealed Lil Jeff's last words. That made Jeff's people even angrier, and now they are determined to get revenge. This story keeps getting wilder, with more drama and more lives being lost. People are starting to notice how similar Lil Jeff and King Von were. Some are even saying that Jeff was trying to be the next King Von. The more details come out, the crazier this story gets. Trop City Rob, the man accused of killing Lil Jeff, is known for being fearless. He is the type of person who would not hesitate to empty a whole clip into someone. Now, with Jeff's people looking for revenge, Rob sent them a message. He said he has been in danger his whole life and does not take threats seriously. He made it clear that if anyone wants to come for him, they better be ready for real. Surveillance footage from June 8, 2024, captured the moment that changed everything. In the early hours of June 9th, news broke that a man had been shot and killed in Chicago. Reports confirmed that the victim was Chicago rapper Lil Jeff. Soon after, CCTV footage of the shooting spread all over the internet. The video showed a group of people gathered near a house and several parked cars. Lil Jeff was among them. A man in yellow shorts was seen trying to get into a car when Jeff noticed him. Without hesitation, Jeff jumped out of a black car and started chasing the man. But just as he got close, two other men appeared from an alley and started shooting. Jeff managed to hit the man in yellow shorts once in the chest, but before he could do more, he was shot multiple times. His body fell to the ground near the porch. The shooters did not stop. They kept firing, making sure there was no way he would survive. His crew tried to fight back, but it was too late. They quickly got into their car and left, leaving Jeff behind in a pool of blood. Scanner reports later confirmed that Jeff had been shot 15 times. His crew tried to save him by rushing him to the hospital, but doctors pronounced him dead on arrival. Police found 58 shell casings at the scene. Meanwhile, the man in yellow shorts, who was also hit, was taken to the hospital by his own people. Unlike Jeff, he survived. That man was Trop City Rob. Rob was later arrested. Reports said that shooting Jeff 19 times while he was already on the ground was not self-defense, it was overkill. At first, Rob was charged with first-degree murder. But later, reports on Reddit showed that his charges were reduced. The Chicago Police Department could not prove he was the actual shooter, so they dropped the murder charge and gave him a gun charge instead. A photo of Rob later appeared on Reddit. He looked fine and in good spirits, which was a relief for his growing fan base. He had become so popular that he even had a subreddit with over 2,000 members calling themselves his nephews. But despite all the online attention, Rob asked people to stop spreading false information about him. He said this was not a movie or a game, it was real life. As more details came out, it was revealed that the beef between Lil Jeff and Trop City started over a stolen chain. Jeff and Rob were once cool, but everything changed when Jeff took a chain from one of Rob's people. He claimed he lost it in an altercation with the police, but Rob was not buying that story. That stolen chain led to a war that caused the deaths of many young men in Chicago. Even after Jeff was gone, his people were not ready to let it go. They were determined to get revenge. Their first target was Trop City Carter. On October 20th, 2024, news broke that a man had been shot and killed in Chicago. It happened at night in the city's Oakland neighborhood. Witnesses said two men walked up to the victim and started shooting. The man had no chance. The shooters then jumped into a white car and disappeared. Paramedics arrived quickly and rushed the victim to the hospital, but it was too late. He had been shot multiple times in the chest and lost too much blood. The doctors could not save him. He was later identified as Shovel Carter, also known as Trop City Carter. After Carter's death, Lil Jeff's people celebrated on social media. They posted messages that hinted this was revenge. One of Jeff's closest friends, Q50, wrote on Instagram that he was done sliding because he had avenged his friend's death. But he also made it clear that things were not over yet. Just a few days later, the war took another tragic turn. This time, the victim was not involved in the streets at all. On November 2nd, a woman was shot and killed while attending a funeral procession for her brother. She had come to say goodbye, but instead, she lost her own life. At exactly 12:01 p.m., police received a frantic call about a crash in a quiet residential neighborhood. A white Jaguar SUV had veered off the road at high speed, smashing directly into the front of a house. The impact was so strong that the entire front porch collapsed, sending bricks and debris flying across the yard. At first, it seemed like a tragic accident, another reckless driver losing control. But when officers approached the vehicle, they quickly realized this was no ordinary crash. Inside the wrecked SUV, the driver slumped over the steering wheel, unresponsive. Blood splattered the dashboard, and bullet holes riddled the side of the car. The glass of the passenger window was completely shattered. It was clear this was not just an accident. It was an execution. As authorities began piecing the story together, a chilling truth emerged. The SUV had been part of a funeral procession, escorting the body of a well-known figure from the streets. The atmosphere had been tense, with rival gangs watching closely, waiting for any sign of weakness. Funerals in Chicago had long been dangerous events, often turning into battlefields. This one was no different. According to witnesses, the Jaguar had been moving slowly along the funeral route when another car suddenly pulled up beside it. Before anyone could react, gunfire erupted. The attackers fired multiple rounds, hitting their targets inside the SUV before speeding off. Chaos followed as people ran for cover, some ducking behind parked cars, others hitting the ground in sheer panic. In the confusion, the driver, desperately trying to escape, lost control of the vehicle and crashed into the house. When police opened the doors of the SUV, they found two bodies inside. One was a young man in his 20s, later identified as an affiliate of Lil Jeff's crew. The other was a teenage girl, no older than 16. She had been caught in the crossfire, an innocent victim of a war that no longer followed any rules. The girl's family later revealed that she had only been attending the funeral to pay respects to an older cousin. She had no involvement in street life. But in this world, innocence did not matter. As the investigation unfolded, the message behind the attack became clear. This was not just a random shooting, it was a statement. Lil Jeff and his crew had been pushing their limits, taunting rivals through their music, celebrating past murders in songs and social media posts. But their enemies had responded, showing that no one was untouchable. The incident shocked the city, but those familiar with Chicago's gang culture knew this was only the beginning. Retaliation was inevitable. The cycle of violence would continue. Lil Jeff had already lost close friends to this war, but this time, things had escalated in a way no one could ignore. The streets were watching, waiting for the next move. A 34-year-old woman was behind the wheel, slumped over, suffering from many gunshot wounds. She had been driving in the funeral procession, making her way from St. Mark's Church in Harvey when the shooting happened. The same streets that carried her brother to his final rest became the place where she lost her life. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, trying to save her, but her injuries were too serious. She was pronounced dead soon after arriving. Authorities later identified her as Rosha Turner from Calumet Park, Trop City Carter's sister. For Lil Jeff's crew, there were no limits when it came to getting revenge. Shooting at a funeral, killing a family member of an already dead enemy, nothing was off limits in this war. But this kind of violence was not only happening in Chicago. The same thing had already happened in another city. On January 13, 2024, Memphis saw a similar shooting. Big Juke, a well-known figure in the city and the brother of rapper Yo Gotti, was attending a funeral when he was attacked. He had been managing his brother's music label, CMG, but that was not the only reason he became a target. A few hours before the funeral, he posted a strange message on social media. "They do not want to face you, they want to snake you. Stay alert to stay alive." Watch your back at all times. It was like he knew something was going to happen. The funeral was for his uncle, Eric Bobo, who was once a big name in Memphis and known for his ties to the drug world. As family and friends gathered to pay their respects, the peace was suddenly broken. Gunshots rang out in the parking lot. When the shooting stopped, Big Juke was on the ground, bleeding. Emergency teams rushed to help him while police started searching for the shooters. Witnesses later said that the attackers were inside a white SUV. Security cameras confirmed this, showing a white Ford Explorer with black wheels and dark tinted windows leaving the area. But that was not the only strange thing. People at the funeral said they had noticed two suspicious men sitting at the back of the church. They left early, right before the shooting. It was clear that Big Juke had been watched. What made it worse was that his mother was in the same car when he was shot. Whoever planned this attack did not care if innocent people got hurt. They only wanted Big Juke dead. So who wanted Yo Gotti's brother gone? People online started putting the pieces together, and all signs pointed to a long-time feud, one that had everything to do with the murder of rapper Young Dolph. Big Juke had shown that he had no respect for Young Dolph, even after his death in 2021. He once mocked a street painting that showed Dolph alongside other Memphis rappers. But the biggest rumor was that Big Juke had put a $40,000 price on Young Dolph's life. People said he sent someone to find the right shooters for the job. This was proof of how deep these street wars had become. Just like Lil Jeff's people were willing to do anything for revenge, Big Juke was also caught in a world where there were no rules. Lil Jeff had built a name for himself as someone who was fearless, and his enemies learned to be afraid of him. Some people even compared him to King Von, another Chicago rapper known for his violent past. In one interview, Lil Jeff was asked if it was true that he had 10 bodies. Whether the numbers were real or not, one thing was clear: he had made his enemies fear him. He was so reckless in the streets that people believed he was trying to be the next King Von. But in a world where revenge never ends, even the toughest street legends eventually fall. The question is, who will be next in this deadly cycle? King Von was often described as rap's first real serial killer because of how much he loved going after his enemies. Some, like King Yella, even believed he was not human. They saw him as something beyond normal, almost demonic in nature. His enemies feared him, but when he was killed in Atlanta, some of them, like FBG Young, celebrated. When asked about Von's death, FBG Young did not hold back. He admitted he was happy. The long-standing rivalry made it impossible for him to feel any other way. What made King Von even more dangerous was the way he talked about violence in his music. He made murder sound thrilling, almost like an art. His lyrics were raw and unapologetic, constantly mocking his enemies, even after they were gone. One of his most well-known diss tracks, GTA, was released just a month after FBG Duck was killed in broad daylight. In the song, Von rapped about Duck's death in chilling detail, making it clear that in his world, there was no mercy. FBG Duck had been targeted for dissing T-Roy, one of Von's closest friends, in his own music. Duck's murder was caught on camera, showing how a black car pulled up, armed men jumped out, and bullets started flying. He tried to escape, but it was hopeless. The killers got back into their vehicles and sped off, leaving Duck to die. The footage even showed one of the getaway cars being chased by the police as it made its way back to O Block. Von had a habit of turning real-life tragedies into lyrics. He even mocked FBG Brick, Duck's brother, who had been shot and killed years earlier. In one of his tracks, Von made it sound effortless, rapping about how he could hit a brick and still make it look easy. Brick's death had been just as brutal. He tried to run, but was shot in the back while attempting to jump a gate. Lil Jeff followed the same dark path as Von. His music was just as violent, filled with real-life details of deadly street wars. He openly mocked his dead rivals, showing no remorse for the lives lost. Every track he dropped was laced with the reality of gang violence, and one of his most infamous songs was about the murders of his enemies, Lil Rob and Monty. The tragic event happened on January 26, 2024. It was just another day in downtown Chicago, near Washington train station. People were going about their daily routines, unaware that within moments, the streets would witness another brutal killing. Two cars sped toward the station, their engines roaring. They came to a sudden halt, and before anyone could react, masked gunmen jumped out. Their guns were already raised, their fingers on the triggers. The moment their targets were in sight, they opened fire. Monty and Lil Rob never had a chance. The gunmen did not hesitate. They fired shot after shot, ensuring their enemies had no way of surviving. People nearby ran for cover, some screaming, some frozen in shock. It all happened so fast that by the time the gunmen jumped back into their vehicles and sped away, the damage had already been done. Monty and Lil Rob lay bleeding on the ground, struggling to hold on to life. Their bodies twitched as they gasped for air, but the gunmen had done their job well. The bullets had torn through them, leaving little hope for survival. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but by then, it was too late. The two young men were rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but neither survived. Their deaths added to Chicago's long list of gang-related killings. What made this murder even more chilling was the way it was captured. A witness, standing on the train platform, recorded the entire aftermath on camera. The footage was graphic, showing the last moments of Monty and Lil Rob as they lay on the pavement, life slipping away. The video quickly spread across social media, going viral within hours. People watched in horror as the reality of Chicago's street violence played out in front of them. But instead of feeling any guilt or remorse, Lil Jeff took the moment as inspiration. He was known for turning real-life killings into music, and this time was no different. In a move that shocked many, he named one of his tracks after the dying groans heard in the video. The title itself was a mockery, a way to taunt his rivals even in death. It was not just a song, it was a statement, a declaration that he had won the war. Social media lit up with reactions. Some were disgusted, calling him heartless. Others praised him for staying true to the street code, seeing it as a part of the brutal reality they lived in. Either way, Lil Jeff thrived on the attention. He knew controversy sold records, and he played into it perfectly. Every post, every comment, every reaction only fueled his image as a feared and ruthless gangster rapper. For law enforcement, the viral video and Lil Jeff's song were key pieces of evidence. Investigators pieced together details from the footage, tracking the vehicles used in the crime and analyzing social media activity. Slowly, the puzzle came together, linking Lil Jeff and his associates to the murders. However, before authorities could make their move, street justice caught up to him. Lil Jeff's life ended the same way as the rivals he mocked. He was gunned down in a similar fashion, an ambush, bullets flying, no escape. His enemies made sure he met the same fate as those he had rapped about. In the end, his music, his actions, and his choices all led him down the same dark road, proving once again that in the world of gang violence, there were only two ways out: death or prison. Both Vaughn and Jeff had another thing in common: they were suspected of killing female gang members. Vaughn was linked to the murder of Key, while Lil Jeff was rumored to be responsible for D-Money's death. D-Money, a feared shooter in her gang, was sitting in a car when she and Lil Deuce were ambushed. The gunman opened fire and vanished into the night. Deuce died instantly, while D-Money was rushed to the hospital, but she could not hold on for long. Not long after, Jeff started posting cryptic messages online, seemingly celebrating her death. He even used hat emojis, a symbol often linked to body counts. This only fueled the rumors that he was behind the hit. Vaughn's connection to Key's murder was one of the biggest mysteries in Chicago's drill scene. She had built a reputation as one of the city's deadliest female gang members, but it was not enough to save her. On April 11, 2014, she was walking with her brother and a friend when a hooded gunman stepped out of the shadows and fired multiple shots. Key was hit 9 times before collapsing on a neighbor's doorstep. Though she was rushed to the hospital, there was nothing doctors could do. Her murder remained unsolved for years, but after Vaughn's death, police reports confirmed what many had suspected: King Vaughn had pulled the trigger. Both Vaughn and Jeff met their end in nearly identical ways. They were taken out while on missions to attack their enemies. Vaughn was in Atlanta on November 6, 2020, when he saw rival rapper Quando Rondo outside a club. Without hesitation, he ran up to him and started swinging. What Vaughn did not know was that Quando's crew was ready. Lil Tim, one of Quando's guys, pulled out a gun and fired. Vaughn was hit in the torso. Chaos erupted as off-duty cops started shooting, hitting Lil Tim in the process. Vaughn was rushed to the hospital, but he did not survive the surgery. Jeff's end was just as violent. He was out looking for enemies when the tables turned. Just like Vaughn, he was gunned down, and after his death, police were able to link him to multiple murders. If he had survived, he would have likely faced serious charges. Instead, his fate was sealed in the streets. FBG Butter summed it up best. Guys like King Von and Lil Jeff never last long in this game. The streets always catch up with them, one way or another.